She was there to treat wounds, not to create them. But when the ambush hit and the team scattered, she was the only one still thinking. She grabbed the radio, gave orders, pulled a man from the line of fire. And when backup arrived, they found her leading the charge, with a medic's bag in one hand and a rifle in the other. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories that showcase the courage found in unexpected moments, consider subscribing for more content that explores how ordinary people become extraordinary heroes when circumstances demand everything they have to give. The pre-dawn darkness hung heavy over Forward Operating Base Kestrel as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos entered the Tactical Operations Center at 0430 hours. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the concrete walls lined with communication equipment, digital maps, and monitoring systems that never slept in this corner of Afghanistan's Helmand province. Santos moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who had learned that survival often depended on being where you needed to be before anyone realized you were needed there. At 28, she carried herself with the confident bearing of a combat medic who had seen enough action to know that preparation and professionalism were the thin lines between life and death in hostile territory. Operations Sergeant First Class David Chun looked up from the mission briefing materials spread across the tactical planning table, his weathered face showing the strain of another sleepless night coordinating multiple ongoing operations. At 35, Chun had spent 12 years managing the complex logistics that kept American forces operational in one of the world's most dangerous regions. Santos, good timing, he said, his voice carrying the measured tone of a non-commissioned officer who understood that every detail mattered when lives were on the line. We've got a situation developing that's going to require your expertise. He gestured toward the detailed topographical maps and satellite imagery that covered the table's surface, marking what would become one of the most significant operations in the unit's deployment history. What's the operational status, Sergeant? Santos asked, settling her medical kit on a nearby chair while moving closer to examine the intelligence materials Chun had prepared. Her trained eyes immediately began processing the tactical information, automatically calculating medical contingencies and evacuation routes even before understanding the full scope of the mission. Chun pointed to a remote valley marked with red coordinates on the map, his finger tracing what appeared to be a complex infiltration route through mountainous terrain. High-value target identified in this location approximately 18 hours ago. Intelligence indicates a significant Taliban leadership meeting scheduled for later today, including several individuals responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces throughout the region. The briefing revealed a time-sensitive operation that would require precise coordination and exceptional skill from every team member involved. Primary objective is capture rather than elimination, Chun continued, highlighting specific compounds and potential escape routes marked on the satellite imagery. These individuals possess intelligence that could save American and Afghan lives if we can bring them in alive. Secondary objectives include recovering communications equipment and any documents or electronic devices that might reveal future attack plans. Santos nodded, understanding immediately that this type of operation would place extraordinary demands on medical support capabilities, particularly if the mission encountered unexpected resistance or if capture attempts resulted in combat casualties. Chun's expression grew more serious as he outlined the specific challenges they would face. The target location is approximately 40 minutes by helicopter from our nearest support base, situated in terrain that makes rapid extraction extremely difficult if things go sideways. Weather reports indicate possible dust storms developing later in the day, which could complicate both insertion and extraction operations. He paused, meeting Santos's eyes directly. Command has specifically requested that you accompany the primary assault team. Given your experience with trauma care in remote locations and your proven ability to function effectively under extreme combat conditions. Captain Jake Morrison, the team leader who would be directing the tactical assault, entered the operations center carrying his mission planning folder and wearing the focused expression of an officer who understood that successful operations required meticulous preparation combined with the flexibility to adapt when plans inevitably changed. At 32, Morrison had led dozens of similar operations throughout his deployment, earning a reputation for bringing his people home alive even when missions encountered unexpected complications. "Santos, appreciate you volunteering for this one," he said, though they both knew that volunteering was often a matter of being the most qualified person available rather than having any real choice in the matter. "Sir, what's the team composition and expected resistance level?" Santos asked, immediately shifting into the professional mindset that had kept her alive and effective throughout multiple combat deployments. Morrison spread the tactical briefing materials across the table, revealing detailed intelligence assessments and operational timelines. 8-man team, including yourself. Insertion via helicopter at 0600 hours to allow approach during dawn twilight. Intelligence suggests minimal security presence at the target location, but we're planning for the possibility of significant resistance given the importance of the individuals we're attempting to capture. His voice carried the careful balance of confidence and caution that marked experienced combat leaders. Morrison outlined the specific roles and responsibilities for each team member, emphasizing the critical nature of Santos's medical support mission. Primary assault team will consist of myself, Sergeant Williams, Corporal Jackson, and Specialist Martinez handling direct action responsibilities. Support team includes Sergeant Rodriguez on communications, Corporal Thompson providing overwatch, Specialist Davis managing demolitions if needed, and you handling all medical contingencies. He traced the planned approach route on the map, highlighting key terrain features and potential hazard areas. Your position will be with the support element initially, close enough to respond to casualties, but protected enough to maintain operational capability throughout the engagement. The medical preparation for this type of operation required extensive planning and specialized equipment that went far beyond standard combat medic supplies. Santos spent the next hour reviewing casualty evacuation procedures, checking her advanced trauma kit, and coordinating with the helicopter crews who would provide both insertion and potential medical evacuation services. Her medical bag contained everything from basic field dressings and pain medication to surgical instruments and blood products necessary for treating severe trauma in austere conditions. "Rodriguez," she called to the communications specialist, "I need confirmation on medical evacuation frequencies and backup extraction protocols in case primary helicopter support becomes unavailable." As the team conducted final equipment checks and mission rehearsals, Santos found herself mentally preparing for the complex challenges that medical support in combat environments always presented. Unlike conventional military roles that focused on single objectives, combat medics had to maintain readiness for multiple simultaneous responsibilities, providing immediate trauma care under fire, coordinating medical evacuations while maintaining operational security, and often serving as additional firepower when tactical situations demanded all available personnel engage the enemy. Her medical training had saved lives, but her combat training had often been equally important in ensuring she survived to continue saving lives. The helicopter insertion at 0600 hours proceeded without incident. The two UH-60 Blackhawks flying low through mountain valleys to avoid detection while delivering the team to their designated landing zone approximately 2 kilometers from the target compound. Santos felt the familiar combination of adrenaline and focused calm that marked the beginning of dangerous operations, her senses automatically heightening as they transitioned from the relative safety of the aircraft to the uncertain threats of hostile territory. The landing zone was a rocky plateau that provided good concealment but challenging terrain for movement toward their objective. Team movement through the mountainous terrain required nearly an hour of careful navigation along routes designed to avoid detection while positioning the assault team for optimal engagement of the target compound. Santos maintained her designated position with the support element, constantly scanning for potential medical threats while staying alert for signs of enemy activity that might compromise the mission. The landscape was deceptively beautiful in the early morning light, but every shadow and terrain feature represented potential danger that required constant vigilance and tactical awareness. As they approached the final observation position overlooking the target compound, Morrison's team conducted detailed surveillance to confirm intelligence reports and identify any changes in the tactical situation that might affect their operational approach. Through binoculars, they could observe several individuals moving around the compound, apparently conducting normal daily activities without awareness of the American presence, observing from concealed positions approximately 400 meters away. Looks like intelligence was accurate regarding personnel count and activity patterns, Morrison reported quietly over the team's radio network. The compound consisted of several traditional Afghan buildings arranged around a central courtyard, with multiple potential entrance and exit points that would need to be controlled during the assault operation. Morrison coordinated final positioning of team members, ensuring that all escape routes were covered while maintaining the element of surprise essential for a successful capture operation. Santos, maintain position here with Rodriguez and Thompson until we complete initial compound penetration. Be ready to move forward rapidly if we encounter casualties requiring immediate medical attention. At 0847 hours, Morrison's assault team began their final approach toward the target compound, moving with the practiced stealth that characterized elite military units operating in hostile territory. Santos watched through her scope as the team members flowed across the terrain like shadows, each operator knowing exactly where the others were positioned and ready to provide mutual support when the action began. The tension was palpable as they closed the final 100 meters, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether this carefully planned operation succeeded or deteriorated into a chaotic firefight. The initial breach of the compound proceeded exactly according to plan, with Morrison's team overwhelming the surprised occupants and securing the primary objectives within the first 90 seconds of the assault. Santos monitored the tactical radio traffic, relieved to hear confirmation that the high-value targets had been captured without resistance and that no friendly casualties had been sustained during the initial phase of the operation. All stations, this is actual, Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. Primary objectives secured, no friendly casualties, beginning search operations for secondary objectives. However, the situation changed dramatically at 0851 hours when the distinctive crack of incoming rifle fire shattered the morning calm. Contact, 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 came Rodriguez's urgent voice over the radio. Multiple shooters approaching from the north. Estimated squad-sized element, approximately 300 meters, and closing. The carefully controlled operation suddenly transformed into a dynamic combat engagement as Taliban fighters who had apparently been positioned in overwatch positions began engaging the American team with coordinated small arms fire. Morrison's team found themselves pinned down inside the compound as enemy fire intensified from multiple directions. Santos, we've got wounded personnel inside the compound, came Thompson's urgent transmission. Jackson's hit, needs immediate medical attention, but we can't move him under this volume of fire. Santos felt her combat training and medical training merge into a single focused objective: get to the wounded soldier and provide the care that would keep him alive long enough for evacuation. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly as enemy reinforcements arrived from multiple directions, transforming what had been a surgical capture operation into a complex defensive engagement against superior numbers. Santos could hear the increasing volume of gunfire and the urgent radio traffic that indicated the team was facing a coordinated counterattack designed to eliminate the American presence and recover the captured Taliban leaders. All stations, this is actual, Morrison transmitted with controlled urgency. We are decisively engaged, requesting immediate extraction and close air support. At 0854 hours, everything changed in an instant that would define the rest of Santos's military career. A rocket-propelled grenade impacted near Thompson's overwatch position, and his voice disappeared from the radio network completely. Rodriguez, positioned nearby, transmitted the dreaded words that every combat unit fears: man down, man down. Thompson's unconscious, possible severe head trauma. Santos, we need you up here now. Without hesitation, Santos grabbed her medical bag and began moving toward the sound of gunfire, knowing that lives depended on her ability to reach wounded team members under fire. The sprint across open terrain under enemy observation required every bit of Santos's combat training and physical conditioning. Bullets snapped past her head as she bounded from cover to cover, her medical bag secured tightly to prevent equipment from scattering if she had to dive for protection. Behind her, Rodriguez was providing covering fire, while simultaneously trying to coordinate radio communications with higher headquarters to request the support that might save the team from being overrun by superior enemy forces. Santos reached Thompson's position to find him unconscious with obvious signs of traumatic brain injury, while Rodriguez was applying pressure to a severe arm wound that was bleeding heavily despite his efforts at self-aid. "Rodriguez, how's your mobility?" she asked while immediately beginning to assess Thompson's injuries. "I can function, but I can't carry him," Rodriguez replied through gritted teeth. "Santos, we've lost contact with Morrison's element inside the compound. The radio's not working, and I don't know if they're alive or dead." The realization hit Santos like a physical blow. She was potentially the senior remaining member of an 8-man team that was being systematically destroyed by enemy forces. Thompson was unconscious and required immediate evacuation. Rodriguez was wounded and losing blood. Morrison's team inside the compound had been silent on the radio for several minutes, which could mean they were either dead or pinned down so severely they couldn't communicate. The extraction helicopter wasn't due for another 20 minutes, and enemy forces were moving closer to their position with every passing moment. Santos made a decision that would either save her team or get them all killed. She activated her emergency radio beacon, grabbed Thompson's rifle, and began moving toward the compound where Morrison's team was presumably fighting for their lives. "Rodriguez, apply pressure to that wound and stay with Thompson. Monitor the radio for extraction coordination. I'm going to link up with the primary team and establish a consolidated defensive position." Her voice carried an authority that surprised even herself. This was no longer Medic Santos following orders. This was Staff Sergeant Santos taking command of a deteriorating tactical situation. The movement toward the compound required crossing nearly 200 meters of open ground that was now being actively targeted by enemy small arms fire. Santos used every bit of cover available, moving in short rushes while maintaining situational awareness of enemy positions and friendly locations. Her medical training had taught her to think systematically under pressure, and now that systematic thinking was being applied to tactical problems rather than medical ones. She could hear gunfire from inside the compound, which meant at least some of Morrison's team was still alive and fighting. Santos reached the compound's outer wall to find Specialist Martinez pinned down by sniper fire, with a leg wound that was bleeding but not immediately life-threatening. "Santos, thank God," Martinez gasped. "Captain Morrison and Williams are inside the main building with the prisoners, but Jackson's been hit bad, and we can't get to him. Davis is dead, and I don't know how much longer we can hold this position." The tactical picture was becoming clear. The team was scattered, casualties were mounting, and enemy pressure was increasing, making another split-second decision that would define her entire military career. Santos grabbed Martinez's radio and began coordinating the team's response to the enemy attack. "All Kestrel elements, this is Santos assuming operational control. Morrison, Williams, if you can hear this transmission, sound off with your status immediately." Morrison's voice crackled back over the radio, strained but alive. "Santos, we're trapped in the main building with the prisoners. Jackson's unconscious from blood loss, and we're taking heavy fire from at least 3 directions." Santos quickly assessed the tactical situation and began issuing orders with the confidence of someone who had suddenly realized that leadership was sometimes about making decisions when no one else could. "Morrison, maintain your position and keep the prisoners secure. Martinez, can you provide covering fire from your current location?" She was already formulating a plan that would consolidate the team's defensive capabilities while providing medical care to the wounded and preparing for extraction under fire. "Rodriguez, this is Santos. What's your status on extraction coordination?" Rodriguez's voice came back immediately. "Santos, extraction helicopter is 15 minutes out, but the landing zone is compromised. Enemy forces have moved mortars into position and they're bracketing our original extraction point." The situation was deteriorating rapidly, but Santos found herself thinking clearly despite the chaos surrounding her. Her medical training had prepared her to function under extreme stress, and now that training was being applied to keeping an entire team alive. Santos made the decision that would later be studied in military leadership courses around the world. Instead of waiting for extraction or attempting to withdraw to a safer position, she chose to take the fight to the enemy forces that were systematically destroying her team. All stations, this is Santos. We're going to consolidate our position, provide medical care to our wounded, and establish a defensive perimeter that will allow safe extraction. Martinez, prepare to move on my command. Using hand signals and short radio transmissions, Santos coordinated a tactical movement that brought the surviving team members into a consolidated position where they could provide mutual support and medical care. She personally carried Jackson to a protected position where she could provide the trauma care that stabilized his condition, while simultaneously directing Martinez and Rodriguez in establishing defensive fields of fire that covered the most likely enemy approach routes. The enemy counterattack reached its peak intensity just as Santos completed the consolidation of her team's defensive position. Taliban fighters attempted to overrun the compound from 3 directions simultaneously, but they encountered coordinated defensive fire from positions that Santos had selected based on her systematic analysis of the terrain and enemy capabilities. For the first time since the ambush began, the American team was fighting as a coordinated unit rather than scattered individuals trying to survive. Santos moved constantly between wounded team members, providing medical care while maintaining command and control of the defensive operation. She treated Jackson's severe abdominal wound, stabilized Thompson's head injury, and managed Rodriguez's arm wound, all while directing the team's response to continued enemy attacks. Her medical bag never left her side, but Morrison's spare rifle was never more than arm's reach away as she prepared to fight if the defensive perimeter was breached. When the extraction helicopter arrived 15 minutes later, the crew found a scene that would become legendary within the special operations community. Santos had not only kept her wounded team members alive through expert medical care, but had organized and led a successful defense against superior enemy forces. The landing zone she had selected and secured allowed the helicopter to land safely and extract the entire team along with their prisoners and fallen comrade. As the helicopter lifted off with all team members aboard, Santos continued providing medical care to ensure that Jackson and Thompson remained stable during the flight to the surgical facility. Morrison, despite his own minor wounds, watched in amazement as Santos seamlessly transitioned from tactical commander back to combat medic, never missing a beat in either role. "Santos," he said over the helicopter's intercom system, "I don't know how to thank you for what you did back there." Santos looked up from checking Jackson's vital signs, her face streaked with dirt and blood, but her eyes clear and focused. "Sir, I just did what needed to be done. We don't leave anyone behind, and we don't give up when our people are depending on us." Her response was typically modest, but everyone on that helicopter understood they had witnessed something extraordinary. A medical professional who had become a combat leader when circumstances demanded it, saving lives through both medical skill and tactical expertise. The after-action review conducted following the mission revealed the full scope of what Santos had accomplished during those critical 30 minutes when everything had gone wrong. She had assumed command of a scattered and wounded team, provided life-saving medical care under fire, organized an effective defense against superior numbers, and coordinated a successful extraction that brought everyone home alive. Her actions had saved the lives of at least 3 team members who would have died without her intervention. The intelligence gathered from the captured Taliban leaders proved invaluable, leading to the disruption of multiple planned attacks against coalition forces and Afghan civilians. However, the mission's success was overshadowed by the recognition that it had been saved by the courage and competence of a combat medic who had refused to accept defeat when her team was facing annihilation. Santos's transition from medical support to tactical leadership had been seamless and instinctive, demonstrating the kind of adaptability and courage that defines truly exceptional military professionals. Within weeks of the mission, Santos was recommended for the Silver Star, one of the highest decorations for valor that can be awarded to American military personnel. The citation would read, "For conspicuous gallantry and exceptional courage under fire while serving as medical support for a special operations mission." When her team came under attack and sustained multiple casualties, Staff Sergeant Santos assumed tactical command, provided life-saving medical care under enemy fire, and organized a successful defense that enabled the safe extraction of all personnel and mission accomplishment. Morrison, who had observed Santos's performance from inside the compound, provided testimony that would be included in the official record. Staff Sergeant Santos demonstrated the kind of leadership and courage that defines the very best of our military. She saved lives through her medical expertise and saved the mission through her tactical leadership. Every member of our team owes their life to her actions that day. The recommendation was approved at every level of command, recognizing actions that exemplified the highest traditions of military service. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from the team members whose lives Santos had saved through her medical care and tactical leadership. Jackson, whose abdominal wound would have been fatal without immediate treatment, credited Santos with giving him the chance to return home to his wife and children. Thompson, who had sustained a traumatic brain injury that could have resulted in permanent disability, made a full recovery thanks to the immediate medical intervention Santos provided under fire. The story of Staff Sergeant Maria Santos became a case study taught in military medical schools and leadership courses around the world. Her seamless transition from medical support to tactical command demonstrated that true military professionals must be prepared to exceed their designated roles when circumstances demand it. She had proven that a combat medic could become a combat leader without abandoning the medical mission that remained her primary responsibility. Years later, when Santos was asked to speak to new combat medics about her experiences, she always emphasized the same message. Your job is to save lives, but sometimes saving lives requires more than medical training. Sometimes it requires leadership, courage, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to bring your people home alive. Never forget that your most important mission is getting everyone back to their families, and that mission might require you to become something more than you thought you could be. Santos retired from military service as a sergeant first class after completing multiple deployments and earning numerous decorations for her medical and leadership contributions to special operations missions. She continued her commitment to saving lives by becoming a trauma surgeon, applying the same systematic thinking and grace under pressure that had made her an exceptional combat medic and tactical leader. Her medical bag and rifle from that day in Afghanistan were displayed in the Special Operations Medical Training Center, serving as a reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who never intended to lead, but stepped forward when leadership was needed most. The mission in Helmand Province became known within the special operations community as Santos's Fight, a testament to one person's ability to transform a potential disaster into a successful operation through medical skill, tactical competence, and moral courage. She had demonstrated that true professionals are defined not by their job descriptions, but by their willingness to do whatever their team needs to survive and succeed, regardless of the personal cost or risk involved. Sometimes the person designated to heal becomes the person who must lead, and sometimes that transition makes all the difference between mission failure and bringing everyone home alive.